right, comedy fans, ready to dive into some serious
So
laughs.
do it.
This deep dive today, we're looking at the Top 10's website, their list of the top 10 funniest stand-up comedians of all time. We got some big names, the classics, Robin Williams, Eddie Murphy,
Yeah, those are always going to be up there.
right alongside some, let's just say, maybe more acquired taste choices,
Oh, are we talking about?
like a Bill Hicks, Doug Stanhope
Yeah.
in the comment section. Let me tell you, it's
Yeah.
like a comedy battle royale
Yeah.
for who really deserves the top spot.
Oh, I can imagine. It's really fascinating to see how this list is sort of a window into how stand-up has changed over the years.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what makes someone's favorite comedian their absolute favorite? Is it their style? Is it their impact on comedy? Is it the time that they were performing in? So many things to think about.
Well, let's just jump right into it then. The
Mm.
elephant in the room, or should I say the microphone in the room,
Yeah.
is that GOAT debate, the
Yeah.
greatest of all time.
Ah.
And you see it in the comments, right? They're just packed with arguments for these different guys. Like,
Uh-huh.
you got George Carlin, known for those razor-sharp social critiques.
Carlin, yeah, he's a legend.
And yeah, Dave Chappelle, right?
Right.
Like, he could just wheeze humor into these really insightful commentaries.
Yeah, the Carlin, I think his impact just can't be overstated. I mean, he was arrested multiple times for his 7 words you can never say on television bit,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
which actually led to a Supreme Court case. Can you believe that?
No, I did not know that.
About the limits of free speech on television. He wasn't just funny, he was really like challenging what society thought was okay to say on a stage.
Oh, absolutely. Pushing the boundaries.
For sure.
I know. I've always been blown away by the comments about Chappelle because they talk about how he just makes every line a potential standout moment.
Yeah, it's true.
Like, it's not just about a catchphrase.
Right.
It's about how consistently brilliant his material is.
And I think Chappelle, he's a master of observation.
Oh, he is.
He takes like these everyday situations that we can all relate to and just finds the funny in them, the absurdity in them in a way that makes you kind of re-examine your own perspective on things.
Absolutely.
And he's not afraid to talk about things like race and politics, you know?
Very sensitive topics.
Makes his comedy really hilarious, but it's also making you think.
Thought-provoking.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, you got to have Richard Pryor.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Like, he's the legend.
The legend Richard Pryor.
Broke down barriers with his raw, unapologetic style
Totally.
and that use of profanity. It wasn't just for shock value.
Right.
It was about breaking free from all those constraints of, like, polite conversation, and giving a voice to a raw, unfiltered perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, and it really resonated with people. Pryor's impact on comedy, I mean, come on, it's huge.
Oh, for sure.
You see it in everyone who came after him. Eddie Murphy, Chris Rock, all these guys, they took his boldness and his willingness to kind of push those boundaries, made it their own.
Paved the way.
Paved the way for this like raw, unfiltered style of comedy. Like they weren't afraid to be real.
Yeah. Yeah, but let's be honest here.
What's that?
Can we really rank comedic genius
Yeah.
objectively? I mean, it's like comparing apples and oranges.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Or maybe more like slapstick to satire.
Oh,
But
you got it.
they're all so different.
Humorous. It's so personal.
Oh, it is.
What makes one person laugh their head off might leave someone else completely stone-faced.
I know, it's so true.
And comedic styles, they evolve over time, too. What might have been seen as edgy and groundbreaking 30 years ago
Right.
might feel totally tame, even outdated by today's standards. This list, it's not really about finding the absolute best.
Right.
It's about appreciating how many different comedic voices are out there
Ah.
and how they reflect the times they were performing in.
Okay, so speaking of all those different voices, different styles, let's move past the whole GOAT debate and look at the range we got here.
Right.
I mean, you got everything from Jerry Seinfeld, right?
Yeah.
Like dissecting the mundane, just everyday life.
Oh, Seinfeld. I mean, his brilliance is in how much attention he pays to the details.
He does, yeah.
He takes these little things, right? Waiting in line,
Ugh, I hate waiting in line.
ordering food, dealing with those annoying telemarketers.
Ugh, telemarketing?
And he turns them into art.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, his humor is observational, but it's also incredibly well structured. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
The way he sets up the joke, the tension, the punchline, it's masterful.
It really is.
He's masterful.
And then you go to the complete other end of the spectrum with someone like Pete Davidson, who's so vulnerable,
Yeah.
right? He uses his struggles, his mental health journey as comedic fodder.
Yeah, Davidson's style it's really personal, almost like he's confessing something to you.
Yeah.
He doesn't shy away from making fun of himself.
No, he does not.
And that vulnerability, I think it makes him relatable, especially for younger people who are going through similar things.
I think that's what makes him so popular.
Yeah, it's a reminder that comedy can be a really powerful way to process tough emotions and connect with others going through the same stuff.
And then you have those who are just fearless. They go right into the dark and cynical humor,
Oh, yeah.
like Bill Hicks and Doug Stanhope.
Yeah. They're not afraid to make you a little uncomfortable.
No, not at all.
They're confronting those uncomfortable truths about society, about politics, about human nature.
Yeah, yeah, those hard-hitting topics.
They're the truth tellers. They use humor to expose hypocrisy and challenge, the way things are.
The status quo.
Yeah, Hicks especially. He was known for his rants against consumerism, religion, the American way of life, everything.
He did not hold back.
Oh, he was a countercultural icon.
Oh, yeah.
He inspired so many comedians to question authority and speak truth to power.
And can we talk about physical comedy for a second?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like someone like Cat Williams.
Cat Williams, yeah.
I mean, his energy is just infectious.
Infectious, yeah.
He's all about the movement, the expressions. His whole body is a comedic instrument.
Williams, he blends social commentary with this over-the-top style. He's not just like flailing around for laughs, you know what I mean?
Yeah, there's a purpose to it.
He's using his body to get his point across and create this larger-than-life persona that just draws you in.
It's mesmerizing.
Yeah, it's like performance art, but it's also hilarious.
And of course, we can't forget ventriloquism.
Oh, yeah. Who are we thinking?
Jeff Dunham. I mean, that's a whole different dynamic.
Yeah, how so?
He's playing multiple characters, each with their own little quirks.
With puppets, yeah.
Yeah, it's like a one-man comedy crew.
Dunham's a master of voice and characterization.
He is. He really is.
Each one of those puppets has a distinct personality, voice, point of view, and he uses that to explore so many different comedic styles.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's incredible. He can make you laugh with a bunch of inanimate objects. You got to give him credit for that.
Yeah, the writing, the skill, it's incredible.
Wow, yeah.
Looking through these comments, it's really interesting to see how people are pointing out how these comedians have influenced each other.
Oh, yeah, like a comedic family tree.
Yeah.
It's so cool to see how certain styles and approaches get passed down, reinterpreted, and they change as new comedians come along.
Right.
Like you can trace a line from Richard Pryor's rawness to the social commentary of Carlin to even someone like Seinfeld.
It's true. You can see the lineage.
You're all connected, even if they may not say it directly.
And speaking of influences,
Yeah.
let's shine a light on some of these lesser-known comedians.
All right, who are we thinking?
Like Bill Hicks and Doug Stanhope, who we mentioned before.
Oh, yeah, they're great.
They might not be household names,
Sure.
but people are praising them in these comments, especially for how they tackle those sensitive subjects.
They're definitely pushing boundaries.
Oh,
Not afraid to make people uncomfortable, to challenge assumptions, make them confront these truths about the world that we sometimes try to ignore.
I know. I saw this one comment. Someone was talking about Doug Stanhope appearing on that show.
Yeah.
Louis.
Yeah, Louis.
And Stanhope is playing a character who's struggling with suicidal thoughts. It's pretty intense.
That's a perfect example of how Stanhope blends dark humor with real vulnerability. He's not just trying to be shocking,
Right.
He's using comedy to explore these really difficult subjects and create this sense of shared humanity. It's like a reminder that even the darkest humor can have a deeper meaning.
Yeah. And it shows that stand-up can be more than just making us laugh.
Totally.
It can start important conversations.
Yeah.
Get us thinking differently.
Sure.
And you see these guys, Hicks, Stanhope, they have these devoted, almost cult-like followings.
Cult-like. Yeah, I get that.
And it really speaks to how powerful their unique perspectives are and their ability to connect with audiences on a deeper level.
Yeah, the cult following thing in comedy is really interesting.
It is.
These comedians, they often appeal to a very specific audience
Right.
who really get their humor, their worldview, their way of seeing things.
Yeah.
It's like they've tapped into something special.
Now, we can't talk about this list without mentioning Bill Cosby.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I mean, the guy has had a massive impact on the comedy world.
He has, no doubt.
Multiple Grammys,
Yeah.
inspired so many comedians.
Especially within the Black community.
Oh, absolutely.
Cosby's influence, I mean, you see it in how Black families are portrayed in media.
Yeah, yeah.
He helped break down stereotypes and pave the way for more representation.
For sure.
But obviously, His legacy is, well, it's overshadowed by those serious allegations against him.
Of course.
And it raises these questions, about separating the art from the artist.
Oh, absolutely. And you see that reflected in the comments, right?
Oh, yeah?
Some people say you can acknowledge his comedic genius while condemning his actions. But others they can't separate the two.
It's tough, yeah.
It reminds us the comedy isn't, in a vacuum.
Right.
It's part of real-world issues, personal experiences.
It can be messy.
Oh, it can be so complex and challenging.
I think it's a testament to how powerful comedy is.
Absolutely.
That it can start these conversations.
Yeah, it can.
Important, sometimes uncomfortable conversations.
Yes.
And while this list is, it's supposed to be about the funniest stand-up comedians,
Right.
it also makes us think about bigger things like morality, accountability, and the very nature of art itself.
Before we head to part 2, I want to touch on something else I noticed on this list.
Okay.
Some of these guys, they've transitioned from the stand-up stage to, the big screen film.
Oh, yeah, like Eddie Murphy and Jim Carrey.
Yeah, exactly.
That's interesting because stand-up and film, they need different skills.
Oh, they do?
Yeah, stand-up, it's all about interacting with the audience right there, reading the room, changing things up on the spot.
Oh, yeah, got to be quick on your feet.
It's about connecting with a live audience right then and there.
Okay, so what's film acting about then?
Well, in film acting, you're playing a character,
Yeah.
and that character's part of a story that's already been written.
Yeah, it's all planned out.
You're working with a director, other actors, a script, a whole crew.
Oh, wow, so it's very collaborative.
Super collaborative.
Oh.
And some comedians, they nail that transition. Others, not so much. It's hard to bring that stand-up persona to the screen sometimes.
Yeah, I can see that.
Eddie Murphy and Jim Carrey are interesting because they've had so much success in both worlds.
Okay, so before we jump to part 2,
Yeah.
any initial thoughts? What comedian on this list is, really intriguing you so far?
That's a good question. As you're thinking about that, and as we move on to the next part, think about what makes their comedic style unique.
Yeah, good point.
How have they influenced other comedians? And how does their work reflect the social and cultural context of their time? It's all connected, We'll dive deeper into these questions in the next part of our deep dive.
Back again, and ready to keep going with this list from the top 10s. Funniest stand-up comedians of all time.
Yeah, lots more to unpack here.
Before we went wherever we go, we take a break. We were talking about those comedians who've made the leap from, the stand-up stage to the big screen film.
Right, yeah, that transition.
And this list with names like Eddie Murphy, Jim Carrey, shows it's not always a straight line,
Definitely not. For some, film becomes their main thing, their big success. But those stand-up roots, that's where it all started. That's where they learned that comedic timing, that connection with the audience.
Yeah, it all starts there.
Think about Eddie Murphy, those early specials like Delirious, Raw.
Oh, yeah, classic.
Legendary for a reason, right?
Absolutely.
That energy, that raw energy, that sharp comedic sensibility, it translated perfectly to those iconic film roles.
Oh, yeah, like Coming to America, the Beverly Hills Cop movies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can practically feel the energy of that live audience feeding into those performances.
Right. And it's not just about, the big, broad characters,
Right.
both Murphy and Carrey. In their stand-up, they had this knack for creating those smaller characters, too.
Yeah, almost like mini sketches within their routines.
Exactly.
That's what connects their stage work to the screen. It's not just about being funny, it's about becoming a character.
Right.
Whether it's that big, over-the-top personality or someone more subtle, more nuanced.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And Jim Carrey, that over-the-top, almost cartoonish style.
I know exactly what you mean.
That's there in his stand-up and in those films like Ace Ventura or The Mask.
It's signature Jim Carrey.
It is.
I wonder, though, why do some of these comedians, after all that success in film, why do they feel pulled back to the stage? Is it that direct connection with the audience? The instant laughs?
There's something special about stand-up, a magic that you just don't find in film.
Oh, yeah.
It's about being in the moment, reading the energy of the room, and just, going with it, adapting your material on the spot.
Yeah, got to be quick on your feet.
There's a vulnerability, a real courage that's
Yeah.
needed for stand-up.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's totally different from acting in a film.
Right. You're all alone up there.
It's you, the microphone, and a room full of people just waiting to see if you can make them laugh.
No pressure.
Right.
Exactly.
It's interesting to think about, how do you actually measure success in the comedy world? Is it box office numbers, critical acclaim, or is it the roar of the crowd, that instant feedback that you're really connecting with people?
Maybe it's both. You know, for those on our list, they seem to have found that sweet spot, doing both.
Yeah, they're killing it on all fronts.
And this ties back into the idea of comedic lineage, which we talked about a bit earlier.
Oh, right, yeah.
The comments show how some comedians seem to have influenced others,
Yeah.
even if it's not, a direct mentorship kind of thing.
Right, right.
Richard Pryor's impact on George Carlin, for instance, it's undeniable.
Oh, absolutely.
Both known for that sharp social commentary, that willingness to push the envelope. Yeah, those are the guys who really made a mark.
And you see that continuing with someone like Chris Rock, right? He tackles these complex social issues too, blending humor and real insight.
Yeah, it's like a torch being cast down.
It is.
Each comedian building on what came before, but also adding their own spin on it.
Exactly. And sometimes those influences are about pushing back against what came before, you
Yeah.
know?
Oh, interesting.
Forging a new path, challenging those norms, the status quo.
I like it.
Think about Lenny Bruce. He gets mentioned in the comments as a true pioneer.
Yeah, I've heard that name.
Back then, his use of profanity, his willingness to talk about taboo subjects, it was shocking.
Oh, I bet.
But he opened the door for guys like Carlin and Pryor to explore those topics with even more freedom.
Wow, he really paved the way.
He did.
It's amazing how much stand-up has changed over the years.
It really has.
What was once shocking or offensive is normal now.
Right, it's mainstream.
But even with all that change, you still see those comedians who cultivate these really devoted followings, almost like cult-like.
We talked about Bill Hicks, Doug Stanhope earlier.
Yeah.
But the comments are full of praise for other comedians like Mitch Hedberg, Maria Bamford, Patton Oswalt.
Oh, yeah, they're all so unique.
What's interesting about these cult followings is that they often center around comedians who don't shy away from the strange, the dark, the deeply personal.
They embrace it.
They connect with those audiences who appreciate that unique perspective, that willingness to be vulnerable.
Even if it means they won't be, mainstream popular.
But exactly.
One comment I saw described Doug Stanhope as so underrated,
Oh, yeah.
arguing that he should be up there with the greats, like Carlin, Pryor.
High praise.
It's almost like there's this protectiveness among these fans.
I get that.
Like they've discovered this hidden gem,
Yeah.
and they want to share it with the world, but also protect it from becoming too, homogenized, losing that edge.
It's like being part of a special club.
Yeah.
Where the entry fee is understanding and appreciating that comedians' specific worldview, their sense of humor.
You're either in or you're out.
Exactly. And for those fans, that connection, it can be really powerful.
Yeah, it's a community.
It's about feeling seen, feeling understood, finding people who share your sense of humor, your perspective on things.
This whole thing, comedic lineage, cult followings,
Yeah.
it all really highlights that the definition of funny is always changing, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. What one generation thinks is hilarious might leave another generation completely confused.
I know, it's so true.
And it's not just about changing tastes, it's about how our culture changes, our values.
Everything shifts.
Humor reflects the times we live in.
It's a mirror.
What we find funny says just as much about us as it does about the comedian.
Oh, that's a good point.
Topics that were once off limits are now, they're front and center in comedy.
Right, no topic is really off the table anymore.
And things that used to be considered safe to joke about might now be seen as offensive or insensitive.
Oh yeah, the lines have definitely shifted.
It's fascinating to see that evolution.
It is, it really is.
And I think stand-up comedy, maybe more than any other art form, captures that so clearly.
It makes you wonder, how will today's comedians be viewed by future generations?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Will their jokes still land? Will their perspectives still be relevant? Or will they just be seen as, like, products of their time?
It's impossible to say for sure.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to wait and see.
It speaks to the power of stand-up as this cultural artifact,
Oh, yeah.
It's not just entertainment. It's a snapshot of a particular moment in time, a reflection of our anxieties, our hopes, our shared human experience.
That's a really great way to put it.
So as we head into the final part of this deep dive,
Okay, last stretch.
I want to ask you this. What are some of the biggest shifts you've seen in what's considered funny over the years? Have there been any topics or styles of humor that you used to find hilarious, but now not so much?
Ooh, good question. And as you're thinking about that, what about those newer comedic voices, the ones you find exciting, refreshing? Are there any comedians you think are really pushing boundaries now, who are challenging our assumptions and making us see the world in a whole new way? We'll explore all this and more in the next part of our deep dive. And we're back, ready to wrap up our deep dive into the top 10s list of the funniest stand-up comedians of all time.
Yeah.
Been a fun ride, through different styles, eras, those passionate debates in the comments.
It has been, yeah. And one thing's become super clear throughout our conversation.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
Stand-up comedy, maybe more than any other art form, really holds a mirror up to society.
Oh, I like that.
The topics comedians choose, how they talk about them, the lines they cross or don't cross,
Uh-huh.
it all reflects what's happening in the world around them.
It's true. Think about how much has changed, even just in the past few decades.
Mm-hmm.
Topics that were once, completely taboo.
Right, like what?
Sexuality, gender roles, political stuff, corruption, all that. It's all fair game now.
Yeah, those are central themes for a lot of comedians these days.
It really shows how stand-up pushes boundaries and reflects, how social norms are changing.
And it's not just what they're talking about, it's how they're talking about it.
Oh, yeah. Good
The
point.
way we even watch comedy has changed so much.
Oh, absolutely.
From those smoky nightclubs, late night TV.
I mean, that's classic, right?
Now it's all streaming services,
Yeah.
podcasts, comedians have this global platform.
Yeah, they can reach anyone.
And even those niche styles, they can find their audience.
It's amazing how much access we have now.
And that's led to so many more voices being heard.
Yeah.
Comedians from all different backgrounds, different perspectives, life experiences, they can share their stories, their humor with the world.
It's really opened things up.
It's made stand-up so much richer, more vibrant than ever before.
I love that.
It's really cool to see how stand-up has become this space for social commentary, cultural critique. It's even for really personal storytelling,
Yeah, yeah.
But it's all wrapped up in a way that can make us laugh,
Right, that's the key.
make us think, and sometimes even squirm a little in our seats.
Oh, yeah, some of those jokes can be uncomfortable.
They can, but that's part of it.
It's that mix of humor and insight that makes it so compelling.
It makes us confront uncomfortable truths, challenge our assumptions, and ultimately see the world differently.
So as we wrap up this exploration of this top 10 list, I want to bring it back to you, the listener.
Yeah, what are your thoughts?
What really resonated with you? Did any comedian's style, their material, just stand out?
Did any of those comments get you thinking about what makes you laugh?
Yeah, or about the role of comedy in society.
We really encourage you to go beyond this list, explore the work of these comedians, especially the ones you might not be familiar with.
Yeah, expand your horizons.
You might discover a new favorite or find a whole new style of comedy that you never even considered before.
And remember, this list is just a starting point.
There are so many talented comedians out there.
Oh, tons of them.
Pushing boundaries, making us laugh, offering their unique perspectives on the world. Keep exploring, keep laughing, and keep those critical thinking skills sharp.
And if you want to keep this conversation going,
Oh yeah, we'd love to hear from you.
share your thoughts with us and the whole Deep Dive community using the hashtag Deep Dive Comedy.
Yeah, use that hashtag.
Because the best comedy, the kind that really sticks with you,
The kind that matters.
is the kind that sparks conversations, challenges perspectives, and leaves you thinking long after you've stopped laughing.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
And we'll catch you next time for another exploration of fascinating topics and thought-provoking insights. See you then.